Bring this meeting to order. It's of the Finance and Claims Committee on Tuesday, October the 27th, 2015. And at present, we have Mr. Whittington, Mr. Thornberry, Mr. Sanker, and Mr. Mumper, and Auditor Jim Stith. So I guess we can start. Jim, I didn't know whether you want to start with the...
Yes, a couple of things I'd like to say. There's a few handouts that I've given out. I do want to say that we did get a reimbursement this year from the Bureau, the Workers' Compensation Bureau for the state of Ohio. We got a check for $30,580. So that'll be represented on our books as a reduction to expense, which represents about 10% or a little less than 10% of the total amount spent that we now get back as a bonus because of several actions the city takes to help our workers' comp, such as a safety committee and some other actions. So that's nice to get money back that we paid out. A couple of things on handouts. There is the proposed Exhibit A for tonight. There is the purchase order request with insufficient appropriations, and there is a payroll cost for building inspectors. I also handed out the copy of the current statement of cash position with month-to-date totals. This is from the end of last month, so September 30th. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to address that. Starting with the building inspectors, 2 building inspectors were hired. You'll see the salaries here are the total cost broken down in line item projected for these individuals from hire date to the end of the year. The total cost of $30,517.79 needs to be added to the appropriations for that fee, or for that key, in order to pay these individuals through the rest of the year.
Now, the one building inspector who was in there, he transferred to another department, correct, or not?
I'm not certain. There was one from prior. Did someone just transfer?
No, there was one that, when these came on board, that we only had one building inspector, and I thought that building inspector took a job in the water department.
Okay, I was unaware of that, so we could cut that in probably another...
So we would still only have 2.
So I would reduce that amount from $30,517 to probably $15,000.
So, I mean, I can verify it, but my last conversations when I was down here, that he had moved to the water department.
That's not something typically that we would be notified of, unless they actually left the city. So,
I guess.
You know that the guy in the water department, the meter reader, moved to the earnings tax department, right?
The meter reader moved?
Yeah.
I heard that he was moving. I didn't know that he did move.
Yes.
And I knew that because my dog will be very upset.
Your dog liked him?
My dog liked him.
If I had a dog, he would have liked him too.
Well, he feeds him when he comes in.
Yeah.
He knows he's smart. He's like, the dog won't bite you if you feed it.
So I know on Exhibit A we had 30,000 on there.
I would change it to 15.
I would say, because if by some chance that hasn't happened yet, or it didn't happen, but I believe it did because the water guy moved to the tax department. So I would think
I would say change it to 15,000 now, and then if we
we'll have time.
If we need to adjust it up or down a little bit towards the end of the year, we've got 4 more meetings. On the Exhibit A, you'll notice a large section here of funds, with the exception of the water fund in the middle of this, which you'll see the numbers that kind of stick out here. All of these are revenue to funds. So we're increasing appropriations based on revenue received. So most of those are pretty obvious. Additional monies came in. A lot of the bigger numbers there are tax dollars. You'll see the TIF funds, the TIF school funds. Those are property tax monies that came in that then were split off and sent to the schools in agreement with the TIFs. The other items are listed on the purchase order request with insufficient appropriations list. Starting at the top, there's credit card fees, and the key that pays fees was in the negative. In other words, we had to expend money out. So you'll see an increase in the contractual for the earnings tax department of $10,063.88. That also includes reimbursement for the tax commissioner for training. Those are the top two items. The next section under tax department is for earnings tax refunds, which we have to pay back. Those are overpayments to people. Safety Service Director, U.S. Regional Chamber, $1,820. That seems like a lot, but it gives us the Bureau of Workers' Compensation reimbursements or discounts, which is why we just got a $30,000 check back. Right. So $1,800 to get $30,000 is a good deal. The other Public Works, that Verizon Wireless Replacement Fund for Public Works, I'm not sure. It seems like that should be able to come from another key. I didn't get to talk to the Safety Service Director about that yet. I had not put that one on the list. It seems like there's probably a number of other areas that can come from.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's materials and supplies if it's a phone. Is it somebody's phone that was lost and we're paying to replace the lost phone? Then it would be under contractual.
Mm-hmm.
The third quarter vehicle parts for health department, that's a blanket PO. We haven't been doing blankets and just addressing issues as they come up. I don't have a specific thing that says they need a new carburetor, or I guess they aren't fuel injector.
I would hold off on that then.
Yeah, I held off on those two on the Public Works phone, which is actually the, Public Works phone, and the health department vehicle parts. The next section is $155 for the health department administration for inspection of the x-ray equipment, and $70 for resource DVDs for the Board of Health. So I put those on here. Water department, number of places there that are refunds for overpayments.
Mm-hmm.
There's another section on there. It says $15,440 for curb stops. Urgent.
Well,
We've got an issue with the water department now for the next couple of months because we've gone from a monthly billing to a quarterly billing. That means the revenue is not there. If the revenue is not there, we can't appropriate the money. And so they're maxed out. My suggestion through my office was to contact them and say, you need to close out other POs to cover this, but unless we transfer money from the general fund into the water fund, we can't change the appropriations right now.
I did talk to him today in regards to that, and said, hey, I didn't realize the total position we were in, but I did say that at 15, I know that you'd like to stock up on these things because they don't have any curb stops right now. But I said, well, what would take us to the end of the year? And they said around 7 would cover them to the end of the year. Now, whether they have POs that they can close out that they can get to for that 7, I don't know.
They have $4,884.34 right now that is unencumbered.
Right, and I do believe he did say he thought he had around 5,000.
Yes.
Which is about what that would be. So
if he could work within that and then maybe close out another PO or decrease a few existing POs to get to that number. Because we can't change the certificate of estimated resources, there's a cap on the amount of appropriations that we could put in the water fund. With the things that are outstanding, including these refunds, we need to take money from a key in the water fund. And just to cover that and to make it balance. From a cash standpoint, we're not paying certain bills in the water fund. We were able to make the water bill for October, which is good because that'll be a huge, huge penalty, like several $1,000s. We could make that payment, but we've held off on paying pretty much everything else. Payroll, water to the city of Cincinnati, sewer comes off automatically. But anything else we're not paying right now until we close the month out and see how much cash we have, because the revenue has dropped off. And while that's a temporary measure, it is something that's going to take us months to get caught up on.
Yep.
So as part of that, I had to move money and actually decrease from their payroll key $12,000. Now hopefully we get to the end of the year and we can put that back in or move it around as those contractual fees. We'll have to see what the final water bill is in come December. Mm-hmm. We may be able to decrease the contractual key to meet that and loosen up some money then to be able to move to other areas, but it's going to be tight just because of our revenue situation, and that'll take a few months to correct itself.
All right. So I can talk to them tomorrow and tell them, see about closing out some POs to see if we can get to that 7 with the 5 they have there now.
Yeah, it's only 2,000 more. To give you an idea, let's see. Is that the 7,300 key? So right now they have open POs in that key, $13,966.
All right.
It looks like they've got some blanket POs, automotive parts, $3,348, materials and supplies, $9,121. So there's a couple of big POs that if they just decrease.
But those two that you mentioned, that totals of 13,966, or in addition to. You mentioned they had
That's total.
13,966.
Those are
total.
parts of the 13,966.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. That way I can tell them, look at these areas.
Yeah, if they look at any outstanding vehicle parts and materials and supplies blanket purchase orders and just decrease a little bit off of each one of those, that may bring them up to the number that they need.
Okay.
And then once we know what the water bill is for December, hopefully we'll be able to decrease the appropriations in that contractual key. And if I see that's happening, then we can actually issue then and now certificates, and they don't have to wait till the meeting when we actually change it.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. If we get to an emergency situation where we need a curb stop in order to
We can always
fix
do it then
something.
and now.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll check with them tomorrow.
And those are done in about $2,500 increments.
So. Okay.
On the back of that page, there's 3 things. The first one is $180 under the police chief administration key for maintenance of evidence system, $180. That's 0831, the police administration. If they change that to 0832, police crime control, they have money to cover that. It's just why it came through. Why do they want to do that on an administrative key for maintenance of an evidence system? So my suggestion there would be to have them submit that PO under a different key in their budget.
So 0832, 7200, we'd be able to cover it.
That's correct. Similarly, same thing, fire department, it's 0841, which is administrative key.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was 0842, which is the actual department key, they'd be able to pay for it. And that's for a Sam's Club membership for one of the administrators. Well, that shouldn't be an administrative fee. It should be like an operating fee as part of the department because he's buying things for the department. It just seems cleaner than us increasing appropriations in those keys, decreasing them in the other keys to buy one thing when they can just file it under the proper key.
Yeah, right, so we'll check with them on both departments to change the request for.
The last thing is new hire physicals for the fire department, $2,660. They have $221 left in the key. Currently, they have outstanding purchase orders in that key of $26,199. The number of those being blanket purchase orders, I would recommend that they go back and look at their existing purchase orders. If all they did was close off 10% of their amounts on the outstanding purchase orders, it would cover that. And since they already have $221, if they do 9% on them, they, those POs that are sitting there that we want closed by the end of the year anyway, don't go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Let's shift that money around. We're being a little more stringent on how the money shifted because we've reached that point where our certificate and our appropriations have met. So as we add things, even if it's a $200 item, we need to take $200 from somewhere else. So you'll see on those changes at the bottom, decrease appropriations. We've got the fire and police department payroll keys dropping by $31,000 each. In order to cover the adjustments to the earnings tax, the safety service director, the earnings tax refunds, and I didn't mention the subsidy to bond retirement. That's just the additional interest amount till the end of the year. So the total interest amount to the end of the year.
So is that $12,000 in the water fund? Is that the money that we just appropriated to move over for a new hire? Is that coming back?
That's coming back because there's not cash in the water fund. We never appropriated additional money for a new hire in the water fund. We appropriated money.
You're replacing somebody that left. It's not a new.
Correct. There was no additional money going into the water department. We never changed the appropriations for it since June. We added payroll positions in parks and playgrounds for 2 employees and talked about the fact that there would have been room left in the water fund for the 3rd guy because somebody left. The water fund being a very closed system restrained by its revenue, and its revenue being down because of the changes in the billing cycles, if we're going to pay anything out, if we're going to increase appropriations in an area, we need to decrease it somewhere else. So it had to come from somewhere. You can't overspend any area, and the state auditor is very strict about not going over on your purchase orders amounts, except for 2 areas, payroll and legal fees. Because you don't know exactly what your payroll is going to be until you know how much overtime people have put in and everything else, which is into the beginning of next year. So decreasing that gives us the breathing room, lets us pay people's refunds back that we have to pay. However, we're hoping that the water bill that the city has to pay in December won't be the total amount of the contractual appropriations in the water fund, so we can decrease those appropriations come December and free up money to buy things like curb stops and move money back into the payroll key. Realistically, though, the payroll key may go over by 4 or 5% because we're taking a little bit off of it. That is, from an accounting standpoint, acceptable, but not something we should strive to do. The money's got to come from somewhere. 2 other things I'd like to talk about, unless there's any questions on what we've gone over here, or any additions you'd like, or other changes to make. Number 1, the year is approaching its end, and we need to be thinking about appropriations for next year.
Right, or I have been.
So I could put together something similar to what we did last year, generally based on the expenses from this year with changes in the major keys of, a big one for us will be bond retirement. And put together kind of a proposed starting point and send files out to everybody if you'd like. Hopefully by next council meeting, and you guys can kind of look over that. And then hopefully have 2 meetings in December where we can bring it to council, if that's what you'd like. We've done that in previous years. It's not exact, but we end up changing it so many times anyway. I've always been more comfortable with having a permanent that we change multiple times than having a temporary that we change twice and then having a permanent that we change 6 times. That drives me crazy. So I could put a temporary together if you'd like, or we could do a permanent.
So, looking at some of the things, kind of comparing where we started last year and how I would probably prefer to start off with a permanent, because we can always change a permanent just as we change a temporary. Typically, it doesn't change much from a temporary to a permanent anyway. You're just, just having a 3-month window there, but you're still, we wind up changing that over this 3 months time too.
Yes.
So it's not, so I think most of the items we're looking at are pretty well fixed for the most part. There's not going to be a lot of additions, going on there. So I do think we'd be better off starting with the permanent and working with that and working backwards on that. As we talked about the bond retirement, potentially looking at that and saying, hey, let's put that at the top of the list and work backwards. That just subtract that right off the top and then plug our numbers in from there, which I think we'd be better off than refinancing unless we find we can't make something meet, and whether we can refinance part of it or I don't know. But those are things, to discuss down the road here. But I do think if we started with that figure and let's get that behind us by the end of next year, and then just kind of tighten the belt that 1 year, I think we'd be out of the the woods for the most part, as long as revenue continues to maintain. I think we could make that happen next year.
We're going to end this year in the negative.
Right.
Doing that next year, we're going to end next year in the negative. But we'd be caught up by the end of 2017.
Yeah.
And 2018 would be, I wouldn't like to say we'll have so much money we won't know what to do with it, but
Don't go that far.
honestly, by the time we get to 2018, having an extra $1.5 million to put in the budget, which is what we're talking about, we could start fixing things that have gone
Correct.
to disrepair.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of like, as per our past discussions, if we kind of look at it, take that road there, and I think that was where we might want to start and work backwards on that.
So I'll work on putting the initial numbers together, similar to the spreadsheets we've done in the past, and sending them out to you in the next 2 weeks, and we'll start working on that.
Right.
The one other item is I would like to talk about payroll for a moment. January of this year, just like January of 2015, January of 2016, is going to be a 3 payroll month. Those kill us. The problem we've got is that the first payroll, I want you to hear this too, Tom. So, the problem we've got is that the first payroll is on January 1st. Typically, when payroll day has come on a weekend, or come on a holiday like Thanksgiving, we always try to hit payroll on, if the payroll hits on a holiday like Thanksgiving, we try to pay it early so people get it that Wednesday instead of waiting till the following Monday. This year, Friday the 1st is a holiday, the banks won't be open. We cannot pay on December 31st. Because that is a 2016 payroll. And we can't pay it for two reasons. Number one, from an accounting standpoint, it's got to be paid in 2016. Number two, there's not enough appropriations to pay it. And number three, there won't be enough cash to pay it. So, Friday, January 1st payroll is going to have to be run and paid on Monday, January 3rd. I can't run a payroll for 2016 and 2015. So I was going to draft a letter that says that and send it to the mayor and law director, treasurer. I've already talked to the people in my office to let them know.
So we're talking about a 2-day delay?
Correct. Because the banks aren't open on the 1st.
I would think if,
Decisions are easy when you don't have a choice.
Yeah. You know, in the past, we've always tried to pay it early. If it was Thanksgiving Friday, you were getting paid, we struggled and we worked our butts off to get that check to you Wednesday. But when it crosses years, we can't do that. You know, it's a whole new accounting year. We can't add that whole extra payroll to 2015. From a standpoint of, that's not when it's supposed to be paid, we don't have appropriations, and there won't be money in the bank for the checks. So
I think if we, like you said, if we advise everybody the reason why we can't make that payroll, because of just accounting issues and the legalities of it, and then that, you know, that we're going to have to push that to the
Will it be the
January
3rd or 4th? Monday's the 4th.
Monday's the 4th? It'll be the 4th. Whatever the first banking day is, the 4th.
Because January 2nd is a Saturday. I just happen to know that for personal reasons.
Yeah, okay.
But,
Yeah, so it'll be the Monday, the first business day of 2016,
Yeah.
people will be paid. So that's the 4th, yes.
And I think if we communicate that early enough, I think it would work. I mean, as in the past, over the years, if we've been close on payroll where we knew that possibly there was a chance we weren't going to meet it by that Friday, we would advise everybody, hey, there's a possibility this may happen, you know, that may be pushed into next week. So I just think if we gave them enough notice, I think we can, well, we don't have too much
Yeah.
of a choice.
You don't have
anyway.
much choice.
Yeah, so
All right.
so I'm going to be drafting a letter and getting that out in the next 2 days to each major administrative head.
Okay. One other thing, when we you don't need to elaborate on the tax budget at all that we're going to talk about tonight on the resolution. I mean, that's,
It's just the one-page analysis of I'll put that on there, no. It is the typical, once a year, we sent to the county how much we think we're gonna get in taxes. County says, here's how much you're getting in taxes, we need to say, okay, we agree with how much you say.
okay. The other thing, I spent a little time on we had talked about a couple meetings ago, approving, you know, a couple trucks for Public Works. And there were a couple questions as far as whether we could make quarterly payments on the one lease proposal, and checking with them, the quarterly payments would work. And as far as, I talked to them, we'd like for us not to get into any payments till next year, correct?
Correct.
So, the payment, they were saying would be like 30 days after, like, the delivery of the lease, you know, would kick in. So at this point, I mean, obviously, we don't have them ordered because we needed the details, that we wouldn't really have delivery on them potentially till December, late December. And then, so we wouldn't be obligated, you know, for a payment or a lease payment until, you know, into 2016.
I think that's fine.
In a little detail, there was one F-350, which was for the water department, which would be capable of being suited up with a plow down the road. And then the other one was at F450, because we had questioned, that would be for the streets department, and that would have a dump back on it, and would already come equipped with the salt additions to it, and that as well. So those were the couple of on the two trucks. And like I said, we wouldn't get into anything until after the first of the year, as far as being responsible for anything on that. So, but just FYI. So, thanks.
Well, if it's okay, I'm gonna run down and make the changes to this, and print these up and bring it back up.
All right, then I'll write this up. Go ahead.
How many copies do you need of attachment?
Well, I mean, we, at the one meeting that we were in favor of, getting to, but we didn't have the details. We couldn't do it if we had to do monthly payments because paperwork wise. Because the one leasing company had a far better rate and the payments were quite a bit less than the other one. So in talking with them,
How's that going?
they could do the quarterly, but we haven't signed anything or done anything with it, or I
The
say,
payments wouldn't be till
I can't even imagine.
2016.
correct.
I mean,
Yeah, so, but nothing's
Yeah.
been,
painful.
I say, I mean, the city, hasn't entered into anything on this as yet, except for the fact that we, had told them that we would like to get one of each, but we needed the details, so,
I thought last winter they had a breakdown of a small plow, that they couldn't get the smaller streets, and that's why we were replacing that truck.
right. And
I mean, are we gonna have that for this snow season?
we should have it by the end of December, yes.
Okay.
So, just, hopefully, we don't have a white Christmas. So,
Your
All right.
wife will be mad.
yeah. All right, is there anything else? And we'll write up a report and then start working on the next year's appropriations, so we can have something in the next few weeks we can start looking at, making any changes, and hopefully have that done by the end of the year, something reasonable, so.
Sounds good.
Very good. This Finance and Claims Committee meeting from 10/27/2015 is officially closed. Thank you.